Welcome to a new Team CGC 9.8 video, and today I wanted to talk about Transformers comics because I think Transformers is actually sort of becoming or is an iconic brand. And yeah, if you don't know too much about my comic collecting philosophy, I really like iconic brands that I think are going to be around for a really long time. And you know, they're not going to get really hot and then really cold, and you know, the issues aren't going to spike up and down in value because there's going to be always a lot of demand for these iconic brands. And I think over time a lot of the issues will certainly hold their value, and with that longer term time horizon, I think you know, you'll get some price appreciation as well on certain issues. But Transformers is one of those brands where I feel like it's kind of on the edge of being iconic. Certainly I noticed some hardcore cult fans, it definitely is iconic. You know, to me, like Star Wars, Spider-Man, Batman, Superman, you know, even X-Men, Wolverine, Hulk, and the Avengers as well, certainly with all the Avengers movies. And I mean, there's been, as far as Transformers movies, like 5 or 6 Transformers movies in the last 8 or 9 years or whatever it might be. So, you know, certainly those kids that are going to see the Transformers movies now are going to grow up and probably get decent jobs, and then obviously, you know, people like me and, you know, people a little older than myself who are really into the Transformers toys in the 80s, and the cartoon series that kind of started it all. But yeah, with all the movies coming out, there certainly is a lot of marketing dollars behind Transformers. So I think, you know, if it's not an iconic brand, it's certainly getting into being an iconic brand. So Transformers, we'll get into kind of all the key issues and, you know, the ones I think are best for kind of an investment perspective as an investment book. Before we do that, I just wanted to quickly remind you to join the team and subscribe to the channel here at Team CGC. And yeah, we're doing about 4 or 5 videos a week now, so staying busy. Make sure you click that bell to get all the latest videos right away, and you get notified of all the new videos. So don't forget to subscribe to the channel. But yeah, back to the Transformers issues here. There's sort of 2 main issues that I do want to recommend. I have one of them, so yeah, we'll get into that one right now then. So this one here being Transformers number 80. This is the last issue of the Transformers series. The series that kind of started in the early to mid 80s, this book being in 1991. In the Overstreet price guide, this book and the first issue are the 2 most expensive books. So in a near mint condition, the first issue is worth like $125 in the Overstreet guide. This one's worth $90. Again, these are the 2 top issues of the Transformers as far as value in the Overstreet guide. And you know, this number 80 here looks really, really good on the CGC census too. So looking on the census, 15% of all graded Transformers 80s are 9.8s. So that's 15% are all 9.8s. That is a pretty favorable ratio, especially for a 1991 comic. And you know, in the 91, 92, 93, that was kind of the peak comic book printing bubble, I would say. And you know, comic books were just so popular along with sports cards at that time, and there were a lot printed. But in actually, you know, something kind of cool about this the end of this Transformers run and why it's really popular with collectors is from what was it, issue 71 to 79 is a low print run, and I believe number 80 is in there too as a low print. So these last 10 issues of Transformers are really popular with collectors. They have really cool covers and they're low print runs. So those are the last 10 issues are generally the kind of the 3rd highest dollar amount in the Overstreet price guide. They're worth about $35. All 10 of those last 10 issues from 71 to 79. This one being the last issue, 80. So yeah, it looks really good on the CGC census. Only 15% of all graded Transformer number 80s are 9.8s. That is a good ratio. Yeah, and for 90s, I would say for a 90s comic, I would say that's a really good ratio because yeah, a lot of the times that ratio is 25, 30, 35% in the 90s, even higher in some books. So even better is that there are only 58 of Transformer 80s and the 9.8 in the world. 58 of them. And you got to figure some of them aren't white pages as well. So this one being a 9.8 white pages, only 58 in the world of this. I think if you're looking at Transformers as a possibility for collecting, this book right here, Transformers number 80, last issue, if you can get in the 9.8s, that's great. You're getting a 1 of 58 item. I just looked on the CGC census this morning. If not, a nice copy in the rough copy to in a raw copy to fit your budget would be really good too, I think. But yeah, this one I purchased it last year, and it was a bit of an add-on sale, I would say, to I ended up buying a Spider-Man issue and saw that the store had this issue as well. And it's one of the really good stores in Canada on eBay, so it was a Canadian store. So I knew I didn't have to kind of bring it over the border or anything and avoid any complications there. So I ended up just kind of, on a whim, kind of stabbing at this one. And I noticed it was well watched when I bought it. There was like 20 people watching it. So certainly a really popular issue, I would say. With only those niche Transformers collectors. I don't even think, most people wouldn't really think like a last issue would be worth too much, but yeah, this is certainly one of the issues to get out of the whole Transformers range. It looks so good on the CGC census, which I think, especially for a 1991 comic, again, most of them are really printed. When you look on the census for most keys, there's like thousands of 9.8s. And with this one, only 58 9.8s. I think this is a really good investment book to purchase if you do want it in the 9.8s. And even a nice raw copy, I think, is going to be a really good book to have. And yeah, so Transformers number 80, this is the first key I would recommend. Looks really good on the census. And the second key I would recommend is one I do not have, and it's Transformers number 1 in the CGC 9.8s in the first print. That's one I've been looking around for quite a while to grab. There was a few on sale last year that I sort of passed up. I know one was in the old case, and the centering was a little bit off. It still was a 9.8 white pages, but I didn't end up bidding on that one. But you don't see too many Transformers number 1s in the first print in the 9.8 white pages. It's a pretty hard issue to find. And just looking on the census for Transformers number 1, there's only 411 Transformers number 1 in the first print on the CGC census. Only 411 of them. That's not very much at all for a key issue, a number 1, and looking on the census this morning, I could sort of understand why it's been pretty hard for me to find one. Usually with these like iconic first appearances, and yeah, and Transformers 1 is the first appearance of the Autobots and the Decepticons, so you do get that like iconic first appearance in comic books of Autobots and Decepticons in Transformers 1. Yeah, and in that first print, it's really tough to find. Only 411 CGC 9.8s. 18.75% of all Transformers number 1 first prints are CGC 9.8s. And that's a pretty favorable ratio. Anything under 20 is a pretty good ratio. Mixed with that only being 411 of them for such a popular key issue is I think really good. Most key issues, in Spider-Man, kind of the biggest key issue, Amazing Spider-Man 300, there's about 950 of those. So Transformers 1, only 411 of those in the 9.8, CGC 9.8s. So almost half, and usually for key issues there's quite a lot, but this one there's not. So yeah, this Transformers 1's looking really good on the census, and you're getting that first appearance of the Autobots and Decepticons, and that's you get all the iconic Transformers in that first issue. So those are the two issues I would recommend sort of in the 9.8s. A couple other, I would say, secondary keys. There's Transformers number 8, which is the first full Dinobots appearance. And that one's got a really cool cover. And yeah, I've seen that one online quite periodically. It kind of goes for about 200 American the Transformers number 8. So if you were on a budget, Transformers number 8 and the CGC 9.8 white page is at 200 Americans, looking pretty good. Yeah, personally, I do like that cover, but I am probably just going to stick with number 1 and number 80. Obviously, already having a number 80, I want a number 1. That's on my first tier buy list, really. Transformers number 1, first print in the CGC 9.8 is pretty much at the top of my list to buy. I would say that with a Spawn number 1 newsstand 9.8 are kind of the two ones that I'm really just looking for to show up in Canada at a really nice price, or even in the US with a decent shipping deal. So some other secondary keys, that 71 to 80 low print run that I was talking about. There's some really cool covers in there. So issue 71 to issue 80, this one being 80. But yeah, 1991 issues and really cool covers. They're all low print runs, and those are really popular with collectors and investors. I've noticed online. Yeah, the CGC 9.8 white pages of that whole run, all those issues, usually would go even more for the Dinobots. So you're looking at probably in that 200 to 250 American range for some of those low print ones. 71 to 79, that low print run. Just talking about prices with number 1 and this number 80 issue. This issue, it cost me, it was $269.99 as a buy it now last year. And that's American, so yeah, you're getting kind of in a $350-ish Canadian range. And I did have to pay taxes on it because it was from kind of a certified seller in Canada, so you got to pay taxes on with sellers in Canada. Sales tax. So yeah, I thought that was a decent deal. This one's being really hard to find. I think, this year looking back on it, I think it's probably even a better deal. I have seen some of these pop up, I think, in the new case though. I don't think I've seen one in the old case. In the new case, and they're going for way more than $269.99. And, that certainly being a buy it now, so I don't know if they sold, but usually people are throwing these up, buy it now is $389 to $400 American. Anyway, $350 to $400 American, I would say, in a buy it now. So yeah, $269.99 is not looking too bad. And I think over time this one's going to do really good, just being that it does look so good on the census. Again, only 58 in the world of Transformers number 80. So Transformers number 1, that is, last year I saw a Transformers number 1, the one I kind of mentioned I didn't bid on. It was a bit off-centered in an old case. So same case as this one being the older looking CGC case, which normally I don't mind. But it was a little bit off-center in the old case, and it went for almost 400 US. And this was last year, probably about the same time as now, but maybe late summer last year. And I thought that was a really good deal. I was kind of hit myself a little bit that I didn't bid on that. Since then, I've seen one in the new case that was looking pretty good, a bit off-centered too. So some of these Transformers ones, I think the paper quality, for some reason with the first couple issues, similar to G.I. Joe issues, wasn't very good for the first couple issues. So yeah, usually you see these Transformers ones and they're not really looking good as far as centering and everything. But with the 9.8, you're going to get a flat, crisp issue that has really white pages, and in that way it's really good, but some of them can still be a lot off-centered. But this one in the new case went for over 400 US. And that's Transformers number 1 in the CGC 9.8 first print. And every now and then online I'll see a couple pop up, and yeah, in general a lot of them are buy it nows for $600-700, even more than that. I saw some with some of them were pushing over $1,000 Canadian, which is $750-800 American, anywhere from $700 to $800 American. So yeah, I think you're seeing Transformers 1s pop up now in buy it nows for those pretty inflated prices, but I think it's just one of those issues where, certainly looking on the census, there's only 411 Transformers number 1s in the first print in the CGC 9.8. So I think this is one that I'm looking to buy, and I think as an investment book, it's a really good it's looking really good as an investment book. I think, whenever you see a lot of people trying to get by it nows for, again, in that kind of 700 to 800 range, that's getting to be a pretty expensive book. And given the iconic first appearances that it has, the first Autobots, first Decepticons, there's so many Transformers movies that have come out, and that's another thing I sort of like about the market at this point. Like, I think the last movie came out last year, and right now we're sort of in a lull with Transformers hype. And I know there's been quite a lot of movies in the last 5 or 10 years, so I think there could be a lull in some of the movies coming out, which I think is a pretty good opportunity to get at some of these sort of investment grade comics for a decent price. Yeah, so you know what, if you could pick up a Transformers 1 or a Transformers number 80 in the CGC 9.8s, I think those are really good investment grade books. And yeah, for secondary issues, Transformers number 8, First Full Dinobots is a cool one. And also keep in mind that number 71 to number 80 is the whole low print run for Transformers, so those are the ones you want to look at too. And from an investment standpoint, I wouldn't really look too much into some of the other issues. Maybe if you really think there's a really cool cover that might sell decent, that might work. But in general, for someone like me who thinks about investing in comics from an investment perspective, collecting comics from an investment perspective, I only want those like really good keys with that tangible reason to buy, which is usually a first appearance or a low print or like an iconic cover or something like that. And yeah, I find anything else you purchase, even though it might be cool, it usually doesn't really work as sort of an investment, and it's usually pretty hard to sell on the way out too. And not all the time. A lot of times there's like some of these cult books within a series that might work, and there's probably some Transformers fans out there that know more about that than me. But for me, I'm just going to stick to Transformers number 1 in the first print, CGC 9.8. I'm looking for that actively right now. And Transformers number 80 looks great on the CGC census with only 58 of these in the world in the 9.8s. So yeah, that'll be all for today's video. Yeah, I wanted to kind of cover, a superhero or an issue or a group of issues, Transformers, isn't kind of out there right now in the news and in the hype. I think Transformers and G.I. Joe both sort of work for that, and yeah, there's some key issues in both runs that I think work really good as investments. So yeah, Transformers, definitely the first issue and number 80 are really good buys as investment grade books. So thanks for watching the show today. If you haven't already, please join the team and subscribe to Team CGC. Make sure you click that bell, because yeah, we're a bit on a roll right now, I would say, doing maybe 5 or 6 videos a week, whereas I'll probably kind of shoot for about 4 or 5 as my goal per week, as sort of a long-term goal with the channel each week. But definitely subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks a lot for watching today, guys. Really appreciate it, and I'll see you on the next video.